All right, well, welcome everybody to the webinar series that we've started regarding energy saving opportunities through energy incentives and rebates. My name is Keith Venezia. I'm CEO and founder of the Eric Ryan Corporation. And on with me today is also Chad Ubry, who heads up our energy services division and is our energy project manager, managing all the initiatives that we have in place at this time. Next slide, please. Just a little background about us for those that aren't familiar with the Eric Ryan Corporation. We were recently acquired by a much larger firm out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, named Renodis. And Renodis was very, very large in the mobility management space, serving customers like Land O'Lakes and Red Wing Shoes. And they wanted to get into the utility space because they foresaw a huge opportunity to provide the services, those types of services to their customers. So they, in looking for firms that were strong in that market, they came across the Eric Ryan Corporation, and the timing was good. The merger, the partnership actually is a year old this week, and so far everything has gone extremely well with the partnership. Both companies have merged together quite well. So they're based in St. Paul, Minneapolis area. We now have over 220 employees, very strong in a number of different markets. And one of the things that we are very, very active in that seems to have come about of late is doing action items such as energy rebates and incentives in markets where the utility or the government entities have provided some strong incentives to initiate different types of rebate programs. Next slide, please. These, just for whatever it might be worth, these are just some of the customers that both parties represent. We've done work either in the utility space, the telecommunication space, but we have quite a number of firms in the Fortune 500 world and do an awful lot of work, especially in the hospitality market. On the Eric Ryan side, 75% of our business is in the hospitality area. Next slide, please. And as you can see here, as I mentioned, we are very well known and endorsed by both Marriott, Hilton, and recently we're endorsed by Hyatt and Best Western. So we are very, very active. We have probably over 4,000 hotels throughout the country that we actively do work with on a real-time monthly basis. Next slide, please. So what I'd like to do now is take a minute and introduce a couple of the people. Bob Sprecher is Vice President of our Energy Services Division. He oversees not only some of the energy service related programs, but also is very actively involved in sustainability initiatives that have been becoming more and more required throughout the country. And then also with me on today, who will be doing the speaking regarding the opportunity at hand, is Chad Ubry. Chad has been with the Eric Ryan Corporation for 25 years and has been involved anything from utility bill auditing to energy site surveys to actually now getting more involved in looking throughout the United States for various rebates and incentives that have very attractive ROIs and presenting those opportunities to our customers. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Chad to speak regarding an opportunity in the Washington State, Puget Sound area. Chad?
All right, excellent. Thank you, Keith. Yes, today we'll be talking about rebate opportunities in the Seattle, Washington area, specifically for customers in the Puget Sound utility area up in Seattle. And Puget Sound offers rebates for energy efficiency projects, and they have investments in renewable energy and energy efficient programs, and they're looking to reduce carbon reduction, community engagement, and then they are very active in environmental initiatives and have received a number of awards. They have some robust rebate programs, and for those of you that may not be directly in the Puget Sound territory, if you would contact us, I know City of Seattle is there and a couple other utilities, we can certainly look to see what programs those other utilities offer. They may not be as robust as Puget Sound, but certainly there should be some opportunities for some savings there. Next slide. So you can see here the area where Puget Sound serves up in Washington. They have both gas and electric service in their service territory. Today we'll be focusing mainly on electrical service and electrical rebates. Next slide, please. And there are some of the cities, of course, that are covered in the Puget Sound territory. So hopefully those on this webinar are in one of these cities. But again, if you have another utility company other than Puget Sound, we'd be glad to help you. Next slide. So one of the major incentives offered by Puget Sound right now is in the area of thermostats, and this would be especially strong for customers in the multifamily, college, dormitory type facilities, and also and specifically for those of you that may be in the hospitality industry operating hotels. So the thermostats that they offer are going to be motion based and infrared based, and they can reduce your runtime by 30 to 40% on your HVAC system. Next slide. And as I mentioned, here's a couple of the ideal applications for thermostats. Again, hospitality, dormitories, multifamily, anywhere where there's going to be sort of transient people staying at your property in and out of spaces, living spaces for extended periods of time, where we can set the thermostat back to achieve energy savings. Next slide. So Puget Sound Energy is offering $200 to $300 per thermostat, depending on your customer type. And this should cover roughly 90% of the cost of the thermostats. In some cases, depending on your application, it's 100% of the cost for materials. Installation is an optional service. The thermostats are pretty simple to install. Your engineering staff should be able to do it in a relatively short time per room. And certainly there's training available to get those installed correctly. And the typical ROI is going to be less than 6 months for these types of projects. Next slide. Now, Puget Sound also has other rebates available. Lighting, of course, is a big one, and across the country, there's certainly been a push for LED and efficient lighting. And any fluorescent lighting that you have at any of your facilities, whatever type of facility you are, should be taken care of. They are obsolete, they're energy hogs, and there's certainly something more efficient available for you that can certainly cut down on your energy bill, and also qualify for some very decent rebates to get a quick ROI. Next slide. And again, just touching a little bit more on lighting, the Puget Sound rebates cover up to 70% of the cost. And so depending on your current lighting wattage and the type of lighting in your facility, we know every facility is different, and you're going to want ambiance, and some run 24 hours, and some are dependent on occupancy in the space. So there's some factors, but we have vendors that we work with that can go out and do lighting audits and get you the ideal lighting for your situation, and your run hours, and what your property is used for. And so the rebates usually cover, again, depending on your facility type, up to 70% of the cost to moving to LED. And again, you can save a lot of money. And some ideal candidates are, again, properties with long run hours, such as common areas in hotels that would go 24/7, warehouses, distribution center, and certainly outside if you have any high wattage metal halide fixtures that would run 12 to 15 hours a day. You need to get rid of those as well. Next slide. And there's also tax incentives available through the federal government for not only lighting upgrades, but energy efficiency at properties. and it's EPAC 179D. It's a federal program that's been around for a good portion of a decade and a half at this point. And what it is, it's a tax incentive, tax deduction for moving to energy efficient projects for your building, whether it be building envelope, lighting, or HVAC. And it's accelerated depreciation, essentially, is what the program covers. And lighting upgrades are a great project to go after for 179D. You're paid on the square footage of the property that's affected by the upgrade. So if you're thinking about building a new building, and you're putting in presumably energy efficiency projects right from the beginning, you're going to have LEDs and high efficiency HVAC. It could be very lucrative to pursue 179D, and not only in saving money and getting money back on your taxes, but also meeting your ESG goals. As Keith mentioned earlier, a lot of cities are mandating reductions in carbon, and even if your city is not, many companies are looking to be good stewards of the environment and have ESG goals. So energy efficiency projects, whether it be lighting, HVAC, are certainly a good step in that direction. Next slide. For any rebates that you get from PSE, it is, at no cost to you on the front end, but on the back end, behind the scenes, you are essentially paying into the pot where these rebates are coming from. And utilities all over the country are doing this. So every month on your utility bill, different utilities call it different things, but there's a line item on your bill that goes towards energy efficiency, and you're charged a small amount per kilowatt hour, probably less than a penny per kilowatt hour. But if you have a large facility, that could certainly add up pretty quickly. And that money is collected and goes into a pot that then Puget Sound Energy, or whoever your local utility company would be, when they offer rebates, that's where that money comes from. So essentially, if you are not dipping into this pot and doing some energy efficiency projects and taking advantage of this money that's there, you are just letting somebody else take the money that you've put into the pot, and you're helping to fund their projects. So we encourage you to, not only for savings and for the environment, but also just because you're paying into it, you should take advantage of the money that's there. Next slide. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some other opportunities in the Puget Sound territory. We talked extensively about the thermostats and lighting, but there's duct sealing, there's ventilation. If you're a larger facility, you may have chillers and cooling towers. Motors and pumps you can put on variable speed drives that can certainly save you some money and help your equipment run more efficiently. And so we have vendors in all of these areas that can help us design projects for you and save you some money, and then of course go after maximum rebates. Next slide. And so I guess just to sum it up, we're here to help you. My contact information will be, I'm sure, at the end of this presentation, but you would contact us, and we have a network of vendors in many different areas. If you have a project and you want to take a look at it, certainly get in touch with us, and we can find a vendor that can help you. We then project manage that. We send the vendor out to your site for an assessment. And so an accurate proposal can be drawn up, and then you would see that proposal, and if it makes financial sense, you would contract directly with the vendor, and then I would work with that vendor and your property team just to make sure that the project is going smoothly, that all rebates are received by the customer at the end, and that the project then meets your goals once it's implemented.
All right. Well, on behalf of Chad Ubry and myself, we do want to thank you for your time. Short and quick presentation about an opportunity. If you do have locations in those markets and have an interest, feel free to contact us. As Chad mentioned, there is no cost on our end. We're not going to nickel and dime you. To be quite candid, we would receive a commission from any of the providers that are given the opportunity to implement the rebate program. So if not in this area and you are listening, just keep in mind that we are going to be having a series of seminars coming up. From what I understand, there's some real strong rebates in other markets that we'll be covering. So look out for the invite to come shortly. Feel free though to contact us. So you can catch us at the email addresses or the websites that you see there, or feel free to contact Chad Ubry. He's at CUBRY@ericryan.com. And again, on behalf of Renodis and the Eric Ryan Corporation, we want to thank you for your time and interest, and look forward to hopefully being of service to you in the future, whether it be in Puget Sound market or somewhere throughout the USA. Thank you.